Neighbours and relatives were helping the Nelson family salvage what they could of their belongings after this morning's fire. Brigades were called to the address on South Street at 7:30 by a frantic woman who said her children were still in the home. As Joanne Nelson made the call, a neighbour who declined to appear on camera kicked open the back door and used a garden hose to create an escape route for young Luke, Brendan and William. The fire started in a spare room and quickly filled the house with choking smoke. Scorched ceilings bear evidence of the intense heat. While firefighters were able to save the house, damage to contents and interior fittings is extensive.
Newcastle's big win against Wests on Sunday was a masterpiece for the team, but a bad memory for centre Jeff Doyle. In the 10th minute, Doyle came up quickly to cut off West's 5'8", Jason Taylor.
And he wasn't expecting me to tackle him. He had his back to me. I don't think he knew I was coming. So I planned to really clean him up. But as I've gone to hit him, he's turned round, his head's got me in the cheekbone.
The result was a sore face and pessimistic predictions from the doctors. If reconstructive surgery is needed, Doyle can forget about football for at least a month. The 22-year-old's form has been spectacular, backing up from last season when tongues were wagging about representative honours for the speedster from Brisbane. Would you rate him as an outside bet for the State of Origin?
Well, I'm not a selector, but I'd say he would be a contender.
Making the Queensland State of Origin side with the likes of Lewis and Jackson is tough enough, and Jeff Doyle is hoping a specialist's report this week will get him back on the paddock as soon as possible to keep in touch with selectors. They may be amongst the best athletes in the world, but they're playing in one of the toughest games. Training for the Winfield Cup starts in October and matches begin early February, turning the heat up on bodies unaccustomed to the pressure.
It's 32, 33 degrees. It's very taxing. There's a good chance of dehydrating, and because you're not conditioned to the game at that stage of the season, it takes a lot more out of the body than it would game 4 or 5 games down the track.
2 weeks ago, East prop Danny Shepherd collapsed in a match against the Gold Coast with suspected heat exhaustion. Tonight, he's still in a coma. Sam Stewart has called on the league to take heed. Stewart says the season should start a month later. On hot days, games should be played at night. The Australian Medical Association has backed Stewart. They say risking dehydration in heatwave conditions is a dangerous risk.
Danny Shepherd's fighting for his life, and certainly Eastern Suburbs and its families are also, praying for him and doing the best for him. But something's got to be done about it now, and I'm sure the League Association or the Players Association are going to put something forward. And I know the Medical Association has already suggested to the league that they look at their games and starting times.
The very civilised atmosphere of the Charlestown Shopping Square, the site for today's Castle Classic launch, is a far cry from the wild and woolly outback adventure awaiting the field when they set off from Newcastle's foreshore on July 28. Before they reach Cairns 9 days later, they will have rallied, partied and bribed their way over 4,500 kilometres of mountains, rainforests and deserts. It's in the same vein as the highly successful Red X Bash, and like that bash, raises money for charity. On this occasion, the recipients will be the Institute for Deaf and Blind Children and the Lord Mayor's Earthquake Appeal. Today, organisers unveiled the Classic's mascot, an ultra-cute little VW, and began officially receiving the first entries. And according to Classic Chairman Chris Arnold, already things are looking good.
Even if we get 50 cars, we're probably going to be around about $190,000 profit. Hopefully we'll build it up over the next couple of years and we'll have it up to the 100 cars to 150 cars, and we're looking down the neck at $750,000 profit.
What about the route you've chosen? What's the reaction to that been like?
Oh, good, yeah. Most of the people that go on these events, they sort of really want to go, have a bit of fun, do a little bit of work, not too difficult, not too hard, just enjoy themselves. Yeah?
Peter Morris was back in his Charlestown office today, settling into life as a backbencher, something he's had little experience at. He was elected to Parliament in 1972 and 4 years later became Shadow Minister for Transport and Aviation, and then the responsible minister on Labor's election in 1983. Other portfolios since then include resources, health and community services, but his most recent responsibility was the all-important industrial relations. Although Mr Morris is obviously hurt by what's happened, his enthusiasm hasn't waned.
Naturally, I'm disappointed. I'm a human being like the rest of your viewers and yourself. The choice wasn't mine, but the reality is we have to think positive and get on with the task at hand. The task at hand is to make our region better.
Mr Morris relishes the idea of being able to spend a little more time at his leisure pursuits, family, flying, fishing and bowls. But he's also pleased to be able to devote himself more to his constituents.
With the freedom of not being under the constraints of a minister and nothing like the workload of a minister, I'm going to and want to take a much stronger role in leadership in the region.
And will Peter Morris ever again grace the front benches of Parliament? Well, that's politics.
It was 12:30, PCar Trading with a queue of customers when a man quietly approached a teller and told her to hand over the cash.
Yeah, I realised then after I saw a teller get upset, then I looked at the guy running. I knew then straight away what had happened, because one of the guys from behind the counter took chase and chased him out the door. Obviously didn't catch him though.
The man was armed with a 25-centimetre double-barrel sawn-off shotgun.
One of the customers said she saw a gun. I didn't see the gun though. I only saw him when he stepped back and took his balaclava off and ran for the door.
The man escaped through this side door on foot towards Gibson Street. The hold-up was recorded by security cameras.
Science staff discovered the ruptured containers of benzyl chloride in a chemical storeroom shortly before 9 o'clock, but it wasn't until 2 hours later the police and fire brigade were alerted.
An officer from Wyong Council was called and he advised the principal to evacuate the whole block of the building. A short time later, I think 3 of the students were overcome by the effects of the fumes, and it was decided then to evacuate the whole school.
12 students, a teacher and a school clerk were eventually taken to Wyong and Gosford hospitals with burning eyes and breathing difficulties. They were all later released, but the fire brigade's hazardous materials unit was taking no chances with the potentially lethal chemical. Breathing apparatus was used as the area was covered with sand and charcoal, then swept clean. Police will continue to investigate the incident, but staff have ruled out the possibility of vandalism.
We have no signs of break-in over the weekend. The security system didn't go off or anything, and it appears as if the bottle exploded for some reason, and this is what's caused the leakage.
Benzyl chloride is classified as a C group chemical by the Department of Education, meaning it's only available to teachers for demonstration purposes. Staff here say they'll now recommend the department give it a D classification, effectively banning it from every school in the state. Bruce Mackenzie, NBN News. There was a spring in the Premier's step today as he inspected a recently relocated industry in Wyong Shire's Berkeley Vale estate. Mr Greiner officially opened a new factory for the Jubilee Spring Company, the latest in a procession of Sydney-based firms to make the move north.
is a classic decentralisation. It's the sort of thing the government is keen to encourage for all the perfectly obvious reasons that too long we've had too many people in Wyong and Gosford Shires and not enough jobs.
But while the Premier was quick to claim some of the credit for encouraging decentralisation, there was also pressure for further sweetening of the pot. The Turnbull Corporation unveiled plans for an elaborate business park, but the proposal came with strings attached. But state government funding seems unlikely. Mr Greiner says the area already gets more than it deserves.
Well, it's already getting that. If you look at the roadworks in Wyong Shire and in Gosford Council area over the last 2 years and the funds that have been allocated from the 3x3 program, the Central Coast is getting far more than its mathematical share.
Wyong Shire Council says all the recent rain has blown its road maintenance budget out of the water, and it will be battling just to complete the projects it's already committed to.
Normally this narrow, poorly lit pathway would be out of bounds to staff at night, but with many of the Martyrs' more popular thoroughfares closed off because of earthquake damage, it's suddenly become one of the major links between the eastern and western wings. So it was that the relief sister was walking along the path just before 7 o'clock last night on her way back from the canteen. It was dark out and the area was otherwise deserted. Well, concealed amongst this tangle of bushes, the attacker clearly thought he had the element of surprise on his side, but he didn't count on the tenacity of his would-be victim. When grabbed from behind by the man, the nursing sister turned around and dealt him 2 solid blows to the head and a kick to the groin, which sent him packing and allowed her to scamper to safety. Police were called, but a thorough search of the area failed to find any sign of the man. Because it was dark and the attack relatively quick, the sister was able to give police only a very sketchy description. The fact that the man is still at large now concerns both hospital staff and management.
What we've done is to advise the staff about the increased security that's available and also to advise them to keep to the lighted areas, even if it does mean taking a bit longer to get there.
For the past 4 days, 350 motorcycle enthusiasts from all states of Australia and some visiting international riders have been competing in one of the most gruelling events, the National 4-Day Endurance Ride. On the previous 3 days, each rider's had to complete a 300 kilometre per day circuit of the state forests and old coal mines around Cessnock in conditions that were less than perfect. And today the finale, group races over a 6-lap course at the Cessnock minibike circuit, which would ultimately decide the category winners. If the competitors thought that the tracks they had to endure over the past 3 days would give way to a relatively smooth racetrack, they were in for a wet and muddy surprise. But the damper and boggier the better for these boys, and they ploughed into their work. 8 races completed the successful championships. In the 92 125cc class, Rodney Pouvier aboard a Yamaha consolidated his overall position and won his race handsomely. Brett Smith was his nearest rival in the class, but he could manage only second. For the 128 to 200cc boys, David Fleming and his Kawasaki and Rob Urquhart had a great battle, with Fleming finally getting up to snatch a victory and a class win. 3 heats decided the 205 to 250cc division, and there was real interest in the first race as Craig Smith from Wyong trailed overall leader Sven-Erik Johnson of Sweden by only 95 points, and he needed a super performance. Even though he rode superbly, he could manage only a second placing to Joachim Hedendal of Sweden, and he had to wait for Johnson to ride his race to see who would be the overall winner. The course was becoming a minefield for competitors, with the off-track section more of a mud dump than bush, and it took a great deal of concentration and determination to keep going. Race 6 was to be crucial to the outcome, and the leader Johnson took extra time to walk the course and study each rut, corner and jump carefully. It must have worked because right from the start of the race, he jumped the field and from there on he was never headed. The world champion showed a clean pair of heels to his rivals, and with the knowledge that he only had to stay in the saddle and finish his 6 laps in under 14 minutes to be crowned the champion, he took no chances and was rewarded for a brilliant effort over a very gruelling 4 days. Craig Smith was second overall, only 100 points behind Sven-Erik Johnson after 1,000 kilometres.
Club President Bob Deeger presented the $100,000 cheque to 69-year-old Mari Caffey this afternoon. The jackpot, which has tempted so many for so long, finally came tumbling down on Monday when Mrs. Gaffey put a few of the proceeds from her racing win through the pokies. She doesn't know what lured her to that machine, but Mrs. Gaffey believes it may have been the result of a premonition. Just nights before the big win, she dreamed of 5 Incas sitting in a row.
I have dreams about a lot of things, but never about Incas. But it was one dream, 5 Incas were sitting up there, and I thought, oh, it's only a dream after all, isn't it? It's only a dream. I was lucky to get $100. I thought I'd be lucky, not 100,000.
If you thought Mari had won enough, you were mistaken. The temptation of collecting another jackpot was too much. To the relief of club members, the new jackpot remains untouched. Mari says the money will be used to pay off her house and her son's. The rest will go on a holiday. Does she have any other plans? Well, yes, one big one.
Well, I want to live another few years. That's the main. I want to live long enough to spend.
More than 3 months after the Newcastle earthquake, and there are concerns that the city's renewal is at a standstill. Building owners are experiencing delays in getting their properties repaired and rebuilt. A combination of insurance hold-ups and government red tape is contributing to the problem, along with an air of uncertainty among potential investors. In an effort to draw these conflicting elements together, Newcastle City Council has proposed a renewal management plan which will go before the Aldermen tonight. To make this renewal plan work, Council will have to employ up to 11 new staff, a top flight manager to oversee the project, a funds manager for the appeal, a social worker and some health and building surveyors. But is the Council in the process simply creating another bureaucracy?
At the moment, there are various persons working on this on these matters on a part-time basis. By setting up this bureaucracy, if you like to call it, we'll bring all that together and people will be employed specifically to look after these matters.
The plan also includes a database where earthquake-related information can be collated at the one place for ready access. The town clerk says residential problems will be resolved over time, but that the lack of commercial development is causing concern. He's worried by the number of building sites cleared since the earthquake, which have yet to be developed.
But I think by introducing this particular plan, we will be able to have some put into those vacant blocks of land that are not sold in the short term, hopefully by, for example, promoting those particular blocks for some specific purpose.
This afternoon, a full aldermanic inspection of the Donalds building in Beaumont Street highlighted where such delays can occur. The owners of the $1 million building, the Zazdanov family, want the structure demolished, citing insurance and engineers' reports. But Council has included the building in its urban design study for Hamilton, claiming it has heritage significance and has so far refused permission. In the meantime, the owner is paying out thousands of dollars a month in scaffolding he's not using and is suffering from lost rent. This decision would be streamlined by the renewal manager under Council's plan. John Church, NBN News.
Over the past 2 months, the Smith family has been approached for help by more than 2,000 people in the Hunter region alone. With winter just 5 weeks away, volunteers have now begun gearing up for what promises to be the most hectic time of their year.
Well, we're looking for blankets, warm clothing, any type of bedding, particularly warm clothing for children and for large-sized people, because they don't seem to get a great deal of those in.
Unfortunately, those needs aren't matched by actual resources. The racks at the Smith family's Lambton base have never been so bare, but with the effects of the earthquake and recent flooding still causing problems, the success of the appeal has never been so vital.
I know it sounds hard when you've got to ask other people to go again to ask for help, but when others have so many things, but we do need that help.
This appeal more vital than any other then?
Yes, this year it is, because there's been so many other things that have happened to Newcastle. So we do need some winter clothing, please, for the kids particularly.
Craig McMillan spent today packing boards and bags in preparation for an early morning flight to Japan. He hopes to return with the World Amateur Surfing title.
It will be a high standard, especially from the Americans and the Brazilians, and especially the Australians. They're the main three, but I think I should do all right there still.
What sort of chance do you rate yourself of maybe taking it all out?
Oh, fair chance. I wouldn't want to say too much, but I'll give it a good go.
But the trip will be tinged with tragedy. McMillan's Newcastle mate Damien Iredale was also supposed to be filling a spot in the Australian team, but a freak accident early this week has left him stranded in a Byron Bay hospital bed with burns to 65% of his body.
Well, he's a good friend of mine. Went to the last World Trials with him and been to a fair few contests with him. It is a bit of a tragedy. Just hope he gets better.
The entire Aussie team has been rocked by news of Damien's accident, but Craig says they're still revved up to produce their best against their traditional enemies from the United States. Indifferent results over recent years should only increase their motivation.
I think it will. We especially always want to win the team's event, but it's really good to have the Open winners and the Junior winners too, so we want to take it all out.
Central Coast fruit and vegetable growers woke to this familiar sight this morning. In the first 110 days of 1990, the farmers estimate they've had only 10 days of clear weather.
We just haven't seen the sun. If the sun got up of a morning, you'd say, well, a little bit of brightness today, but we just haven't seen sun, and the rain keeps coming down, and it's just doom and gloom.
The growers say it's the worst season in more than 30 years. One of the region's biggest producers, Bill Bennett, usually turns off 25,000 10-kilo boxes of tomatoes. This year, just 11,000. The crops are literally rotting into the ground. Stranded by the rain, Bill spends his day working on maintenance.
I've fired everybody, just doing nothing. Ground to a stop.
It must be depressing for you.
Yeah, very depressing.
Broccoli crops too are suffering. 50% have been infected by fungus, eating away at the farmers' profits. The Department of Agriculture estimates farmers here on the Central Coast have lost around $1 million just this year. If the rain continues, that scenario can only spell bad news for vegetable prices on the supermarket shelves. In the last 3 months, shop prices on tomatoes have risen by 400 to 600%. A shortage caused by wet conditions both here and along the east coast means quality is in great demand. Broccoli has risen from $1 a kilo in December to prices of $5 or $6. Fruitos predict prices will keep rising. If the rain continues, householders will be paying dearly for all ground crops. Peter Ryan, NBN News.